Hey, welcome back. In this section, we're going to talk about vision, mission, and goals and why they are so critical to understand as a product manager. So, the company that I'm going with, as you know, is Figma. And one of the keys, if I was to start at Figma as a product manager today, I would want to understand what is their company vision, what is their mission, what are their company goals, and what are the goals of the product organization. So for the sake of this process, we're going to go over company mission, company vision, and product goals. Company goals might be out there. And in some companies, the product goals are the company goals, especially for startups, which Figma is still very much considered a startup, even though um, many consider them the next billion-dollar company if they don't already have a billion-dollar valuation. So the question is, I don't work for Figma, right? So how do I understand what their vision, mission, and goals are? Do I make these up? What do I do in this process for building out this part of the portfolio? Well, in a lot of instances, this information is available, right? One way or another. Part of what we need to do as product managers is research. And so this is a great effort to practice research. So where do I find their vision? Where do I find their mission? Could be their website, could be in press releases that come out, could be in talks that the executives give. Um, it could be pretty much anywhere, but Google's really powerful. So if you type in the company name and vision, it'll probably put you on the right path. So what we're going to talk about in this video is vision. Right, Figma's vision is we really want to create a go-to place for everyone to create and communicate through design. Right, and the heart of vision is it needs to be aspirational. Right, when you use terminology like everyone and go-to place, and then something actionable behind it, like they're basically saying that we want to be the number one tool for everyone. Like when someone thinks about creating and communicating through design, they think of Figma. And when that happens, our vision is complete, right? So that's a place where you probably will never reach 100%, but that's what makes a good vision, is that you always have something to move towards and to strive for, and it's big enough to expand over time from a narrow focus to a broad focus. Which brings me to where I found this vision statement. So there's a great Forbes article that came out not long ago from the time of recording this, which I'm recording this in August of 2020. So this came out in April of 2020. Figma eyes acquisitions, new tools with 50 million in fresh funding, right? So they're valued at 2 billion. That's pretty incredible considering they're still just a startup. All right, so if we go through this, the CEO Dylan Phil just basically goes over, like, with the whole COVID pandemic that's going on, teams are turning to virtual solutions for everything, right? So whereas Figma is not a virtual whiteboard, one of the popular products that you might be aware of is called Miro, where people do virtual whiteboarding, but people are using Figma. They're like, why would I use a separate tool when I can use Figma to do this, when I can have multiple people in an editing session, or even just viewing the editing session, and we can have this virtual communication, right? So as we go through, they just kind of explain what they're doing with their business, where they see expansion opportunities, who their funding partners are. So it's a lot of good context as you go through this process to understand different aspects of the business at a high level. Because as a product manager, we really should to some extent know what, like, the vision of the company is, but also so the pieces that kind of come together, right? Because there could be pieces that other product managers or other groups are working on that might either become a hurdle for what you're trying to accomplish, or become an opportunity for what you're trying to accomplish. And there may be synergy with other PMs and other aspects of the other products or features. All right, so it basically just goes in saying, like, the core of our business is interface design, but there's a lot more to it. And so it even mentions, like, who the company, like the incumbent is. So who's the dominant player in the market, which we're going to get to market research in the next section. But it already says here Adobe. Adobe's the big player, but there's rival startups, including InVision and Sketch. Both of these I've used. I haven't used the Adobe product personally. Adobe products tend to be really robust, but also really complicated to learn, which is a big benefit of a tool like Figma, which has a real low barrier to entry and a really short learning curve. So it goes on to talk about competitors, again, more great context. And then there was an interesting line here, right? We're moving from what I would call the decade of code to the decade of design. So I think that's just a really good insight in general as you're seeking to become a product manager, that yes, code is important, which we're going to see in a few lines down. But the differentiator going forward is really around design, user experience, delightful experiences. Like, people will pay more in the future for a delightful experience than a functional experience. Okay, it's got to be functional, but that's pretty much table stakes now. Okay, so there was recently a front end bug. So if you look here, front end bug, what happened with it? Well, um, just yesterday, users flocked to Twitter as the Figma service temporarily crashed. And they're like, oh, what if this happens once a week to give us 4-day work schedules, like as a joke? Like, yeah, anyway, so it still has to work, right? Code still has to work, so products don't crash. Um, but going back to the point up here, design is really becoming a differentiator, and not just visual design, um, but the actual user experience, the interaction design, things that make using your product simple and enjoyable. So we'll need to remember that as we go through some of the later phases. But getting back to the core of what we were talking about here, the vision, right? If Fields, the CEO, his vision is realized, the company will face only more scrutiny in the months to come. This is referring back to their vision to expand to where Figma is not just for product and design teams, but for entire organizations. But it's in this last part that he mentions the vision that he has for the company. We really want to create a go-to place for everyone to create and communicate through design. So I didn't make this up. I didn't pull this out of thin air. This is coming from the CEO himself, quoted in this Forbes interview. So what I would encourage you to do is, whatever company that you've taken on and adopted as your company that you're going to put on the PM hat for through this process, go look on their website, go look in press briefings, look in articles like this, and see if you can find that aspirational statement from an executive that points towards a good vision statement, right? It might be explicit on the website, or it might take a little digging. If you absolutely can't find it, take as much information as you find in your research and create your own aspirational vision that you think would be closely aligned with where the company's going based on the research you've done. So with that, that's the vision statement. We're going to move into the mission statement, how it's different, why it matters, and how it's that bridge between the vision and your goals. So in the next video, we'll cover that, and I'll see you there.